Manifest 360 on the air, loud and clear. We're here today, and hopefully you're joining us each and every week as we talk about new topics, new things, and exciting things happening throughout our lives. Perspective and persistence is the title of today's show. And, well, Vipin, tell me a little bit about that, because when we were chatting a little bit, you said that you had this thought that came to you at a meeting the other day.
Yeah, I had a personal development meeting that I went to with some coaches and some folks. And the person was talking about perception. And a perception of something is the reality that we see, that we perceive in that moment. And it's a lot of metaphysicists and a lot of psychologists and a lot of therapists and scientists will agree that what you see, what you perceive, is not the reality. It is your version of the reality based on your eyes, based on you could be half blind, so you could be colorblind. It makes total sense. You're perceiving something based on your perspective, based on your beliefs, based on your physical capabilities, based on where you grew up, everything, right? And so perception, we think, is the reality. It's not. And perspective matters a lot more as a broader view of that thing. And so we tend to say, well, if I see it, I believe it.
Nowadays, you really can't trust your eyes, though. I mean, you look at things now. I watched quite a few videos on Facebook and stuff, and a lot of that stuff is AI generated, and a lot of it is user generated. And so, I mean, you really can't believe your eyes anymore, talking about the seeing is believing thing.
Yeah, you can. And so you and I are on computers. I'm calling you from the West Coast. You're calling from the Midwest. I'm on a wireless laptop right now. There's no wires. I can't see the connection between Wisconsin and I right now in the West Coast, but there's a huge connection electromagnetically, Wi-Fi-ly, whatever, internet-ly, whatever you want to call it. We can't see the connection, but we can see each other on this video, and we're going to be able to broadcast audio on Apple Podcast and Spotify and all of this podcast. So, yeah, so perspective is the reality that we see based on our own thoughts, beliefs, emotions at the moment, history, experiences, where we live, what country we live in, what language we speak, all sorts of cultural ways that we grew up. And so, yeah, perspective is really important. Now, we're talking about Manifest 360, which is our method of manifesting money, success in life, better health, that kind of thing. But we just focus on money at this moment, on purpose and prosperity, right? It's how to live with purpose and prosperity. So perspective matters a lot. A lot of wealthy people have a dramatically different perspective than a person who grows up in poverty and a person who is in poverty. And they've done research on this, and I think we probably have talked about this, that a lottery winner 10 years down the road blows all their money and has become broke again. You've heard that. I've heard that. It's because their perspective doesn't match the reality that they're in. They just got lucky. Now, a lot of wealthy people, you put them in a situation they may lose money. A lot of them have gone bankrupt a bunch of different times and have become successful again because their mentality, their perspective on wealth and money is different. So how do you get to that level of perspective? You got to fix your thinking. We've talked about this a number of times. People talk about, there's a great book out there called As a Man Thinketh. I brought this up on this show before. He says...
I don't remember that
well,
one.
Remember that quote that I used? Cherish your visions, cherish your ideals, cherish the music that stirs in your heart, the beauty that forms in your mind.
Yeah.
If you stay true to them, then your world will last be built. That's that quote directly from that book, As a Man Thinketh, James Allen. Wrote in the 1800s.
Oh, okay.
Wrote in the 1800s. There's a book out there called Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. He took a lot of the principles from a book called Science of Creating Wealth. I forgot the author's name on that one, but anyways, this stuff's been around for a long time. They talk about your thinking stuff, universal intelligence, all of this stuff. So how do you actually change your thinking? How do you get your perspective as a wealthy person? How do you create that wealth perspective? And how do you create that thinking that aligns to that? I'm certainly not a guru, but I've certainly have studied this stuff for a long time. And I've been reading personal development books, science books, thinking books, listened to a lot of audiobooks in the last number of years. What I've gathered is, yes, thinking is the most important thing. And what I've also learned is to change your thinking, you've got to use a phrase or multiple phrases. They're called affirmations in the Western world, but in the Indian and the Hindu world, they're called mantras. Everybody knows what a mantra is because for whatever reason, it's been our system. So, a mantra, as simple as I'm calm, centered, and loving, which we talked about, can get you into I'm calm, centered, and loving mindset. It can change your thinking around that. How do you take that to the money-making mindset? Here's a simple example of a mantra that I use, okay? This is something the first time I'm going to do it because I haven't told a lot of people about this one, but I think it's really important. Here it goes. I create wealth and opportunity for my family by helping millions of people achieving their goals. I create wealth and opportunity for my family by helping millions of people achieve their goals. Whatever mantra that you want to create, you can create one. I'm going to have a list of them in the book that I'm going to publish. There are simple ones out there that I have enough is a good one. I am abundant. I have enough. Sometimes people like to be able to say, I'm grateful for the wealth that I'm creating for my family. Some people say that whatever the word I am is really important, not that I'm going to get the wealth. In your thinking, you need to be able to be grateful for that future event and then repeat that phrase over and over again. So let's start out with a simple one for anybody getting started, and the wealth one is I have enough and I'm safe, right? Safety that's built into it. I have enough. If you repeat I have enough, you're going to find a way to be grateful for what you have. If you have enough, you're grateful. That will start shifting your mindset immediately and your thoughts around. If you go around saying to yourself, I have enough, you're not going to live in scarcity anymore. That's a simple basis of starting at a level of gratitude and abundance automatically. You're thinking of something. Go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say, but don't follow it up with, but I want more. I have enough, but I want more.
That's a great question. I'm so glad you said that. What's wrong with saying I want more?
Yeah, I guess you're right. There really isn't anything wrong with saying it. But but if you're trying to get into that positive thought process by saying you have enough, you know what? Actually, you're right. Because if you say I have enough, but I'd like more, or I want more, or I can do better, that just pushes you a little bit further to do some more of those things.
You and I both have enough. We live in a pretty safe place. And you know I want more. You know I'm funding this podcast, funding websites, funding applications, funding AI, funding marketing people. I want more. Nothing wrong with wanting more. I was talking to a guy today, and I'll tell you an interesting story. I got to a park at lunch. At lunchtime, I had to go for a walk. I got to a park by a river today, And while I was there, I parked the car and I get out and I was tying my shoes. I changed my shoes from business casual shoes to walking shoes. And this guy pulls up right next to me, and I was like, how rude. How can this place, parking lot's wide open. Why is this guy coming right next to me? One car over. He comes up and he gets out and he goes, do you want to race? And I'm like, what? And so he was obviously talking about walking and racing, right? And I'm like,
you should have gotten in your car and just took off.
and I just, so I said, okay. I said, you're talking about walking, right? He's like, yeah. He goes, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm just being funny, whatever. And I go, are you going to walk? He's like, yeah. I go, we'll keep walking. I'm going to walk that way. He's like, I'm going to walk that way too. Long and behold, I'm walking for an hour with this guy. Okay? So he's asking me what I do, and he's telling me what he does. He's an old landscaper expert and retired guy, and originally grew up in Fernando Valley, California. He tells me at one point in the conversation that he met God, and he had a God-changing experience around Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta is this huge mountain in Northern California. I don't know if you heard of it or not, but
I have.
You have? Okay. It's considered a haunted mountain by some people, or a spiritual mountain by others. I don't know. I've heard both of those things. So he goes on to tell me this stuff. And at one point I'm talking to him, and I'm like, yeah, I go, you're from California. And I said, I kind of want a condo in this town in California on the waterfront called Encinitas. He's like, I know where it is. It's Paramahansa Yogananda. Yogananda Center's there. I'm like, you know about that? He's like, yeah. So we talked about Yogananda. Yogananda, you and I probably haven't talked about. Let's talk about it briefly for a moment here. Yogananda came to the U.S. in 1922, I think it was, on a religious conference in Boston, traveled all over the U.S., ended up in Seattle like 1924, ended up settling in California, building a huge temple, a couple of them, one in L.A. and one in Encinitas. And there's a famous surfing beach in California called Swami's Beach. And he's in Encinitas. Swami is another name for a guru. And it's right next to his temple is this surfing beach called Swami's Beach. It's about 45 minutes north of San Diego. So I tell him I want a condo there. So it goes back to I want more, right? I've wanted a condo in Encinitas for a number of years. I wanted a place in California, Southern California, to be able to go to in the rainy winters of Seattle, right? That's just been a dream of mine. What's funny is I almost gave up on that dream, but I didn't. I told him the dream. It kind of reminded myself that I have that dream. And what's interesting about that dream is I have that picture in my mind of this beach, of this temple, of these shops, restaurants, and these places that I could go to. I actually even looked at real estate. I get emails from a real estate agent still once in a while about properties that go on sale in Encinitas. Isn't that funny? So I embedded that in my system, and I forgot all about it until this guy that I was talking about. So perspective, right? I've already created a vision for myself. I started a journey in podcasting with you 2 years ago because a friend of mine told me I should get into podcasting so I could promote my book. I've been wanting to write a book over 20 years. And I'm glad to say I have a literary agent. She's from New York City, right? I've told you that before. She's super good. She represents the New York Times bestsellers. She started sending the proposal out last week. One of the publishers wants to publish my book. Huge news, like you said, right? I'm on my way.
Absolutely.
I'm on my way, right? We're on our way to get this podcast. Lots of people. I also told you that I have a marketing channel that I've been developing, the spiritual mindset thing on social media. That's going off its own thing. Then I also have an email marketing campaign that I'm working on. I have a system for that I started to sending emails out. We're going to promote this podcast through emails as well to folks that are interested. A targeted list of folks in this space. So things are happening, but it's my perspective has stayed the same. I've been very persistent, even though we only had 30 visitors last summer for a whole month. when we kind of took a break off, right? We usually get a few hundred listeners a month. I get emails of people wanting to join our podcast and authors every single day now. I don't even tell you that, Bob. I don't want to have any hosted speakers because I want to talk. I want to get better at talking.
It's the Vipin show.
It's the Vipin show for right now. I'll get guests later when I have more. So I want more, but I have enough.
I have enough, but I want more.
I want more. Nothing wrong with wanting more. I think wanting more to live a life of your dreams, whatever that is okay. It's more than okay. It's a really good thing. Universe wants you to grow. Universe wants you to be happy. Universe wants you to travel. Bob, I know you want to travel. I know you want more at some level. You want to travel more.
Oh, yeah.
You want to have more time,
Absolutely.
Right? What stops us is we think we can't, so we won't. So we don't want more because we don't think we can. And I think that's the nonsense thinking that we get, is we don't think we can get it, so therefore we stop trying. So the first one is perspective of be wealthy and live a life of aligning your energy based on purpose and prosperity. You need to start with saying, I have enough, I'm safe, right? I'm in a good place. And it's okay to want more, whatever that is. Whatever you're going to achieve things to a level of where you can actually believe you can achieve them. We've talked about this. I'm just a kid, immigrant parents, barely could afford a house. They bought a house in Roseville, poorest part of Roseville, near Como Park. But they bought a house, still own the house. $640 was the mortgage at the time, back in the mid-'80s. It was worth $86,000. It's worth a lot more now. Couple of immigrant parents. My dad lost his job, worked at Target at night. And here I am, living in Seattle, living in the West Coast, living a pretty good life. Got a pretty amazing career.
Mm-hmm.
We're writing a book and all this stuff. We're not going to talk about the millions that I created when I was 31. I often still joke that I peaked when I was 31. But I
don't believe that.
I don't think I've peaked. I think I'm peaking as I'm growing more and more. I think I've maybe financially peaked at that point, but I'm still going to peak more than that now. Tying it back to persistence, perspective and persistence. Your thinking needs to change. You're going to achieve to the level that you can conceive in the belief that you can actually get it. You're only going to try. Now, something I haven't told people, and I'm going to tell them, debating myself as I talk about it. Mentioned that I'm worth over $1 million, right? I want it to be worth X millions. Okay? X millions was the goal for a couple of years, 4, 5, 6 years. Multiple millions, right? As of last month, prior to this news of this week, based on AI and the technology changes that I've seen, I have taken my goals and turned them into 2.5 times more. I am now asking for the universe for, and I'm acting on it, 2.5 more multiple millions than I was going after before.
Well, in that case, I'm going to be 100 air in no time, Vipin.
Exactly.
Yes!
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, the point being is, nothing wrong with wanting more. Persistence in your thinking. You and I have been talking about it for 2 years. We're on our way. Mm-hmm. I can see it. I can imagine it. I can see 4 million visitors coming to my website a month. I can see it. I can see people going to our podcast. I couldn't see the how. I still don't know the how exactly, but I can start to see the email marketing, the social media marketing, and all of this stuff, right? The websites that I've built and the applications that I've built, and people are going to use it. They're going to keep getting better. They're not 100% set yet, but that's okay. The how is coming together. One of the things that I talked with you, Bob, and what I wanted to do, I didn't want to make my money in going door to door and presenting in conferences on selling books. That isn't what I wanted. I always wanted to do the podcast from Encinitas. Overlooking the ocean, I'll have my laptop and my computer there, and you and I will do a podcast from there. But I wanted to do this game called One to Many. This game of social media marketing / website marketing and all of this technology and tools. The book is really important for the messaging of helping people, thinking. But I want to give people more tools than that. I want to give them coaching through a platform like an application like Manifest360.app. I want to give them the ability to consistently do what Benjamin Franklin did on a notepad. Most people don't use notepads today, but they have a phone. They can log into an app easily, and they can go into their website and easily update stuff. I want to give people those kind of tools. To change your thinking, you need to be able to have a mantra. And we're talking about manifesting money and prosperity here. You need to be able to start feeling abundant. You start out with the phrase, I have enough. And you can say, I want more. I want more abundance in my life. And maybe that should be the second phrase that people should focus on. I have enough, but I want more abundance. That's totally okay. And that's how you start the game. And once you decide you want more abundance, then you start saying, I'm grateful for abundance of $1 million in my life. Or I'm grateful for an abundance of 100,000 in my life. Or I'm grateful for abundance of 100 million in my life. Let's do an exercise, Bob. You and I look at this, okay? How much more would you want? Not how much you think you can get. I want you to write it down today. Your homework for today. I already know what I want. I already know I'm going for it. I'm already repeating these things. For today, right. I want you to write down, and to our listeners, how much do you want to live a life of your dreams? I didn't say how much you can get.
Sorry, are you asking? Are you asking monetarily wise?
Monetarily wise, how much money do you want?
See that to me that's kind of a loaded question because of the fact that for the most part, I have exactly what I want. I've done well when I was younger. I saved well. I invested well. You know what I mean? So I mean, I've got enough, but there's always room for more. Okay. But the
room
amount
for more
of
is only going to happen if you want more, right? So how much more do you want?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
If you didn't have to bartend at night and travel all the time with you and Monique, let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's
how
true.
much do you need for that?
You're right. So I guess I hadn't really ever thought about that because I always thought, especially since we started doing the podcast, I've always thought, I'm lucky because I have what I want. I've got most of the things in my life that I want, and if I wanted different things or more things, I change what I'm doing in order to make that happen. Because I've always had the sayings, Vipin, that life's too short to be married to someone you don't love, to work a job you don't like, and to drink shitty beer. That was kind of my...
And it's true. All of it's true.
That was kind of my saying my whole life. But the funny thing is that so like if I go into a new place now, I ask for a shitty beer. I ask a bartender, give me your worst tasting beer or your worst, in your opinion, your worst beer. And I've found a couple of things that I've really enjoyed because of that. And so this didn't really answer what you had said.
But
it kind of gives you a different outlook or a different perspective.
You're giving me an example of you have exactly what you want in life. And then my question to you is, are you sure?
Yeah, I guess I don't know the answer to that.
And so the question
I will honestly I'll think about that this week though.
I actually want you to think about it, and I want you to tell me, what do you want? And people think, oh, I feel bad, I want more money, I don't think I can get it, or people who have more money are selfish, or the billionaires, or this. Bullshit. All that's bullshit. That's the excuses, right? Money is uncomfortable.
It really is.
Money's uncomfortable to talk about in our society. But it's the biggest tool that we have to live a life that we want to live. And I want to travel. I can't wait to get on a cruise for 18 days in Scandinavia. I already know the port that I'm going to leave from in Amsterdam. I already know what the ship looks like. I already know the mountains in Norway that we're going to go through. And stop in Denmark and staying there overnight and having dinner at these cafes. I already know that stuff. I already know in Bali the cottage that I'm going to stay in. That's the kind of stuff that if you want it, you got to imagine it. If you want it, I want it.
Right.
I want to travel. And I'm not saying I'll travel all the time, but I want to travel. and I want to give speeches, and I want to do podcasts, and I want to sell software or applications or whatever. That's just what I want to do.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
it's the level of thinking is your perspective. You can only achieve what you can conceive in your mind. It starts with your thinking, and I'm telling you, once you're clear about what you want, and then you have a mantra to repeat to yourself what you want, you will be on your way to get it. But it's going to require a change of thinking, and it's going to require a mantra of some sort.
But, to kind of argue, I don't want to sound like the arguer, naysayer guy here.
Go ahead.
But, like my trip to New Zealand this year, it was one of those things like, cool, I wanted to go, so I went.
Yep.
I went on a cruise last year. Every year we kind of take a trip. But you're right, I do want to travel more, and that's something that I hadn't thought about putting that into the universe until you just brought it up.
And the reason you didn't think about it is because you didn't think you can get it.
I disagree. I think I could get it, but it just would probably take me longer to get it since I didn't think about it. You know what I mean? Since I didn't put that down as a goal or as a listed written down on a piece of paper thing.
What I'm suggesting for a lot of people is a lot of people don't think that they can, and therefore they don't. When I was in Roseville once, I'll tell you this story. I had just sold a company. It was at least 20 years ago. I was at the Harmar Mall in Roseville, and there was a Barnes & Noble at the time there. And I went to the Barnes & Noble, and there was a couple of teenage girls, and I was sitting in a chair, and they came and sat, and you used to have like these sofas there they used to sit on, and people would come and sit by. And these girls were sitting there, and they were talking about school, and they looked like they were average teenagers, maybe lower middle class, and so I asked them what they were studying, what their plans were, and I'm saying, are you guys going to go to college after high school? They're like, we don't think we can afford it. And I was like, that's kind of sad. Like, why don't you guys can afford it? They're like, our family, whatever, blah, blah. And I didn't want to get into it too much, but I just kind of surfaced around it. And I told them my story. That, hey, down the street there used to be a Nolan's. I worked at the Nolan's grocery store at night in high school so that I could save enough money for tennis lessons so I could make the varsity tennis team. And then my dad worked at Target. We didn't think we could afford to go to college. I was able to get enough loans and enough grants to be able to go to college in Wisconsin. And I told them that I started an internet company and I live in Seattle. I just happened to be visiting. And I said, you can achieve anything you want. It's going to take some time and some hard work. They're like, wow, really? They didn't think they can go to college. My guidance counselor in high school was an old science teacher or something, and he was a guidance counselor, Mr. Schultz or something. He was a total dick. I hate to even say that on here. He thought I needed to go to community college because he thought that I didn't have good enough grades. I didn't have good enough grades. I had a C+ average in high school. But guess what? My ACT score was like 27 or something out of like 30 something, whatever it is. My SAT scores were at least 1,200, whatever they were. They were good enough to go to any college. Not any college, but I got accepted at University of Minnesota General College, not the liberal arts school, but General College is the base college that you get into. And I got into Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Smart enough to get into those. Didn't have the grades because I was bored in high school. I wanted to fit in more. I wanted to focus on sports. I didn't care about education at that point. I came from India where I had focused on education all my life. It didn't give me what I wanted socially. So I focused on other things. When I got into college, again, I focused on sports and stuff for the first year, and then I got my butt in gear, and then I graduated with a 3.0 GPA in computers, right? I finally got my act together my sophomore year, whatever. So the point I'm trying to make is you can achieve what you can conceive mentally. Got to change your mindset. Got to change your perspective. And then you got to be persistent in how you change your mind. You can't change your mind one day because you'll change it back again tomorrow. You need to be consistent. You need to be persistent about your thinking. So Henry Ford and Thomas Edison changed the world because they could conceive in their mind and because they were persistent. They continued to take action. They continued to believe in themselves. They conceived in their mind what they wanted to achieve. and through persistence, were able to go after and get what they wanted.
And that wraps up this episode of Manifest 360. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't just think about it, apply it. Alignment isn't a vibe, it's a practice. Belief, emotion, strategy, and action, all moving in the same direction, that's where momentum lives. Be sure to follow, share with someone building something meaningful, and join us next week as we continue helping you manifest wealth and purpose. Manifest 360 is a podcastforhire.com production.